going to help them. But when it's starting to become a recurring thing, at some point you got to help yourself. You just can't keep relying on me. I got my own family I got to worry about. So, but again, I don't want to get too far in the weeds.
Okay, so I can need you, just don't need you too much.
That's it right there.
All right.
Bingo.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Black Men with Purpose podcast. For those of you joining us for the first time, it's a pleasure to have you with us. This is a safe space where we share our thoughts on a multitude of topics in hopes of helping Black males, young and not so young, overcome obstacles and challenges that can be hindrances to happiness, productivity, and success. We believe that through our experiences, successes, and failures, we can have some conversations that might help other Black males in their respective journeys through this thing we call life. On today's episode, we will be doing the third and final part of our Q&A. So get ready for some new topics, starting with our next episode. But again, we want to finish off this Q&A to answer the questions that you all have graciously sent in to us. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into this thing. Was our first question tonight. Should Black families that have made good money leave their inheritance to their children if they choose to go a different route and it so far has not worked out? I will read that again. Should Black families that have made good money leave their inheritance to their children if they choose to go a different route and it so far has not worked out?
I don't see why not. Maybe if your children have gone a different route and it hasn't worked out so far, I would say even if it had gone well, I would think you would want to put it in a trust just to make sure that the money is there for the future for them. But you have to let your kids make their own decisions as to what they're going to do. So I can't really go too far in depth. I don't want to get too far off in the weeds, but I know one of the things I had planned on doing is, if I'm leaving money to my daughter, possibly I would even leave it to my grandkids just to make sure that my grandkids, if I'm blessed to have them, would have a good starting point as well, a trust for them. That way, my daughter is more than capable of doing things for herself. But that's what I think so far.
About a couple of questions that we had in the second part to this thing, and my answer to this is very similar to that. Like this is very specific to you and your situation, right? I don't think there should be any sort of rule to this. In fact, there is no rule to it. It's whatever works for you. And if you have a significant other, where y'all have made money or whatever, it's totally up to you and your situation and how you feel. There's no should Black families do this or shouldn't they? It's again, it's whatever works for you. I'm not going to sit up here and give somebody advice on whether they should leave an inheritance to their child or not. Do what works for you.
Reading the question, what I saw at the end was estate planning. If that's what you choose to do, like Kev just said, but I do think that there's a lot of benefit to teaching, your children to be responsible with money, teaching them, how to manage it. If you have the ability to, and that's what you want to do, giving them a head start. The good thing about trust is you kind of get to dictate the terms, even from the grave. So, so I think that tools are in place for you to do that if you so choose to. But that's what estate planning is. So I'm a huge proponent of it. But again, like Kev said, it's it's an individual choice or decision. I just know that, as I've heard in the past, you're gonna have to get it out the mud like I did. I don't, yeah, I don't know that I necessarily agree with that per se, because the truth of the matter is that sacrifices were made by generations before us so that we could have different opportunities and different experiences. So, and I don't think it's any different for the generations coming behind. So
Totally agree. I love that that added take about getting it out the mud. It's so ridiculous, especially considering where we are as a community. Like the last thing that we should, I mean, and even our ancestral roots, it wasn't that idea of you got to get it from your own. It was I build upon into the next generation. So like Kev said, I definitely think it's a personal that's a personal choice. You might be that kind of family that'll use a inheritance to reward or punish behavior. If that's who you are, so be it. That's your personal choice. But I totally agree with the estate planning trust aspect of it. That's why you set up trust and you do some estate planning so that you can mitigate those losses. You can navigate those tax, those probate costs and things like that. And, I don't think that it's up. That's like just thinking about my family and how I love my people. There's no way that I would leave my people in any kind of struggle because I had some strong opinion on how their life was going to turn out. Like, yeah, I'm going to put it in a trust. So there's some safety measures, but that's the purpose of trust. That's what a lot of people don't understand is that these huge families, when they have a trust, yeah, they make sure that there's money flowing to in an inheritance form, but that the trust has, vehicles that allows it to propel forward through generations instead of just, hey, I'm gonna leave all my stuff to the next generation. If they go out and live this crazy lifestyle and be getting coked out and partying all the time, then that's the end of it. So like, there's just a lot of estate planning you can do. So I don't think it's just a one size fits all, one and done type issue.
Yeah, I just think whatever is best for you, your family. Instead of leaving kids behind, I know for us as a people, I know at least for me, I know my parents, they did well, but they didn't, leave us a whole lot of money, but they left us the ideas on how to do well on your own. So I think it's not so much maybe leaving your kids an inheritance, but leaving them the tools to make better decisions. They make a bad decision, how they can come out of that and turn it around. I think you can probably do better by preparing them, by training. If there's things you don't know how to do, you don't know how to do a trust. I mean, there's so many things out here now. You got LegalZoom, you got Total Legal. I mean, you got options out here. And so I think the best thing you can do if you do make good money is teach your kids the options that they have to invest, save, or whatever to do with their own money.
Are we, as a Black men's group, more open to masculine men admitting they are or have had an interest in another man? To each his own. I mean, you live your life how you whatever it is. I mean, I'm not, I don't judge with regards to that. That's people are who they are. If you're interested in a man, you're interested in a woman, you live your life. You live your life however you see fit to live it. And that's really about it for me. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to treat you differently as a man just because, you may be a homosexual man. That has nothing to do with me. Just like if it was a man married to a woman, again, that's your relationship is your relationship. And it has not a thing to do with me. So again, I have no issues. If one of you brothers were, were part of the LGBTQIA plus community, I love you just the same, right? I treat you just the same way that I treat you right now. Would not treat you any differently. So That's my take on it.
Like you said, to each his own. You have to do what makes you happy. Like you said, Kev, if if it's a man interested in another man, if it's a woman interested in another woman, whatever makes you happy, as you said, it's not our job to judge. Is we were commanded to love one another. That's all it was. We weren't commanded to love one another only if they were heterosexual. No, only if they were black, only if they were white. No, we are put here to love one another. And everybody is capable of making their own choices. And whatever choice is best for you, I'm going to support it 100%. And
No, I totally agree. I just want to, I agree with Kev and Ray, and that's at this point in my life, that's not even, I would hate for any of my friends to feel like this is something that they would have had to hide and live their life in a closet of sorts or any type of way. But let's acknowledge the fact that as men, we ain't start here. So I think,
That's true. That's a fact.
I think this question deserves that type of nuance to it. Like, it's a quality question, because I think, I'm not going to speak for all of us, but I think at least for me, you caught me years ago and I might have had a different answer to this. But
I definitely would have had a different
same,
But
same.
I knew I had grown, because somebody was asking me if I had gay friends, and I was like, I really just call them my friends. You know what I mean? Like, I don't say, hey, these are my straight ones and these are the gay ones.
Right.
They're just my friend. They're my people. Like, we don't even think about that. But yeah. So I just want to give a shout out to the brothers, man. I know that me and Kevin had many conversations about journeys, and it's taken some opening of our minds and moving away of social constructs that we grew up with and that we espouse. So
More open to masculine men. I wouldn't say more or less. Like you said, I mean, I believe in live and let live. However you choose to live your life, and I think that, as you all were responding, I was thinking about, the genesis or potential genesis of a question like this. And I think it comes from a place that, too many times people take it as some personal affront to them because someone else chooses to live their life the way they choose to live it.
Yep.
And that's unfortunate. I'm not trying to give anybody else that much power or influence in my life or the way I think or even how I act. So I agree with you all. Whatever you choose to do is what you choose to do. I grew up around, an uncle that, I never knew him to be anything other than gay, right? I never understood it, but I didn't have to. All I knew is that he was one of the coolest uncles in the family, and we loved being around him because he was always the same. And he always treated people with dignity and respect. So I was just like, yeah, he might, he different than the other uncles, but he also different in a lot of great ways than the other ones. So, to each his own.
I'm like, hey, I wouldn't want nobody trying to tell me how to live my life. If I'm happy doing my thing, as long as I'm not bothering you, as long as I'm not trying to convince you that my life is better than your life, I'm doing my thing. It's the same way. I don't want to have somebody try to tell me how to live my life. And I don't want somebody say, hey, Byrontown, to tell me how to live X, Y, and Z. You got to do your thing, what makes you happy. You got to do the thing that's going to make you sleep at night. You got to do the thing that's going to have you have peace with God. And what you do and how you do, if that makes you feel and you have peace, you can't live your life for nobody else. And I think that's for us coming out of the military was always, you got to live your life because what somebody else said you had to do. But now, you make this transition in life and you're like, at this point, you're like, you know what, at the end of the day, nobody's paying my bills. Nobody's taking sending your kids to college. At the end of the day, you the one got to take care of your family, and you got to do what makes you where you can sleep at night. So no.
Do you feel the military has become too relaxed? If so, what rules or regulations would you bring back?
I'll be honest, I couldn't tell you. I've been retired for 10 years and I left it all back there in 2014. I couldn't tell you if the military is too relaxed or what rules, regulations, what have you exist. I honestly don't care. I'm proud of those folks that are serving because they're still part of the 1% that's willing to do what others won't do. So, having too many tattoos, if people are upset about that, a tattoo does not keep you from being able to put bullets down range if that's what your job requires you to do. Having a beard does not prohibit you from doing your job. I could care less, man. So, this was an easy question for me to answer because again, I haven't paid attention to anything since I retired.
Yeah, we see, bro. You jump right in on that.
He mad about
You had that answer locked and loaded.
Ain't nobody mad, but that one was there.
I'm like, did somebody give you the answers before the test? No, but so I think that the military is evolving probably as it should.
Yeah.
Right? Because people are evolving.
Yeah.
And I think it's, for instance, it's the lack of propensity to serve that's driving a lot of the consideration for making changes within the military. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't do that, you think in strength is hard to meet now, it's going to become virtually impossible. So I think it's just that the military, had to evolve, and they'll continue to evolve and look at ways to evolve. And I, for one, think that it's okay to evolve. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to have people with different experiences and, ideas, as long as your core competencies are adhered to. But even with that, they have to be core competencies that everyone is serving by. And I think that's part of the challenge that you see, if you've been around in the military for any period of time, you see that, and that's where the lack of equity and the lack of inclusion and the lack of diversity comes into play, is because, everyone is not treated the same as far as consideration and opportunity. I don't think everyone will all ever be treated the same. I just don't believe in that. But I think as far as, playing by the same rules, having the same access to opportunities, to be the best version of yourself, all that can be done. And so I think, as long as you have the core competencies in place, the other things surrounding the military and the changes to standards and rules and regulations will probably continue to evolve, as long as it doesn't disrupt good order and discipline.
Say, like Ray was saying, I've been retired for quite a while now, for 9 years. So I'm not sure what's happening in this day and age. However, I can speak for the time when I retired, and I would imagine if I were still in, my response would be much the same. I don't think it was so much about rules and regulations as it was accountability. It doesn't matter what rules and regulations you have in place if you're not holding people accountable to, those policies and those rules and those regulations. So that was part of, I retired for a variety of reasons. I really did. But one of them was the fact that after spending 25 years plus in the military, things had evolved. Like Rod said, things evolve and things are supposed to evolve. That should happen in every aspect of life. But if you stick around something long enough, it's going to evolve to a point where it's probably going to start rubbing you a wrong way. And so I think that for me, that was one of the reasons that I did retire. Again, I'm not going to knock whatever those changes were and the evolution of things. But for me, after 25 and a half years and being kind of, groomed a certain way in the military and being a certain way myself, it got to a point where I was just like, okay, this is going to a place where I'm just not comfortable anymore. I think about, for anyone watching, we've talked about military who may not have been in the military, but we talked about rank in the past. And just to kind of reiterate, if there's someone new watching, the rank of E9 is the highest enlisted rank that you can attain in the military. And there's a certain amount of respect and responsibility and things like that go along with that rank. And that's in any military branch. But in the Air Force specifically, that rank is called the Chief Master Sergeant, affectionately known as a chief. And so I remember toward the end of my career going through the gate, coming in the gate one day, and there was a young troop, right? He had a couple of stripes. He was young. And I spoke, and he gave me a head nod and said, "Sup?" And I'm like, wow, that's what we doing now? Like, you got E3s talking to an E9 like that? Like, and it's not even about a flex, right? It's not even about me wanting power, or it has nothing to do with that. It's just their customs and courtesies in the military. And, when we started getting to a point where those customs and courtesies weren't being adhered to, right? People just weren't being accountable regarding those things. I was like, okay, yeah, it's probably time for me to go. It's probably time for me to go. So I said all of that to say that I don't think it's so much about rules and regulations as it is about accountability. So
no, I think too with when they talk about this question, it says relaxed. I see it as when the military start adhering to more diversity and inclusion, all of a sudden now it's becoming too laxed. It's coming too lax now because we're allowing people to have beard. We're allowing sisters to have their dreads now. And I think when you started, I think that's where some people start saying, "Oh, the military is coming too lax now because we have DNI in force." And I just see with the involved, as the military evolved, as Rod said, I think you got to evolve, especially if you're going to be in the United States, because our culture is that we embrace all people. And, you happen to have people from all walks of life that want to be part of the military. And so because of that, a lot of times I know when we were in, we had to leave home some of our customs and courtesies and stuff to wear that uniform. But now I think the military is saying, you know what, people can still be effective with their customs and courtesies, just like, Muslim people now can wear their custom in their uniform now. So I just feel like when you start talking about the military becoming lax, I think you see people who are now afraid of the DNI and people changing. And that's what they're talking about to me. That's what I see. All of a sudden now there's a change in the military because more diversity is being included in the ranks.
Absolutely agree with every point, and shouldn't have to caveat it like that because we always in here agreeing. One day I'm gonna come in and say that take sucks, but today ain't that day. Today's not that day. No, I agree. I think though that the point that Kevin was making just really resonates with me. There just comes a point, like we all know at what point in our career was the sweet spot as far as where we had gotten to a point where we had internalized the values and the disciplines, and we were entering into leadership positions to where we could kind of enforce them too. So we all know that there was kind of like a sweet spot in our career. For me, it was about that era around 2009, 2010, right around there. That's the sweet spot of when the Air Force was the thing for me. But by the time I got to senior and chief, which are the top 2 ranks in the Air Force. I love the way Kevin does that because I just be talking like these people listening know all the military jargon. But by the time I got into senior leadership, I saw serving in the military in a certain way. And so there was things that I would be irritated about only because it wasn't in my sweet spot. It wasn't because there was anything wrong with it. It was just because, well, I used to have to put a blade to my face and I'd had bumps on my face for years. And man, all of this, that's such a dumb art. Like a buddy of mine, man, had been retired for a couple of years and I was in my last year. And this was just when they had started letting women, instead of having that hair bunned up, they let them wear the ponytails down. And man, I saw some girl and she had the ponytail and that just looked so, and I'm looking at him like, wow, man, it's a lot of stuff going on here. First off, you're a man. What do ponytails got to do with you? But not only that, you are naturally bald. You can't even grow that much hair. Why does that have anything to do with you, how women wear their hair? And I just felt a certain way because I remember Tika, LJ's mom, when she used to have to take her hair and tie it up. And I remember everything she had to go through. And it was just like, wow, that's a lot you got to go through just to be in uniform. Like they want you to serve, but you got to be so uncomfortable and out of your element to serve and do this job, And it's just like, I think that's what happens is, to Byron's point, you get a lot of people that got issues with stuff that ain't got nothing to do with them. Like what's traditional Muslim garb, that don't have nothing to do with you, with your white American, white Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, American male self. That don't have nothing to do with you. You a whole man and you worried about what the women look like in uniform. That don't have nothing to do with you. And I think sometimes it just gets to a point, and I totally agree with that I think a lot of it is rules feel relaxed because we're becoming more diverse and there's more equity and there's more inclusion of different cultures and things like that. And I think sometimes, we just get caught up in what we like and we think what we like is the best. You get us all on here and we gonna be quick to talk about how music ain't like it used to be. And it's not. It's not. Let's be clear. It's not. But, there's stuff that we prefer because that was our time. You know what I'm saying? I'll be quick to be like, yeah, gospel music was good when it was the Mighty Clouds of Joy. And good and well, Joe Lagun is a notorious freakazoid. You know what I'm saying? So, that's enough from me.
All right, next question. Do you believe we can bring back Black Wall Street? If so, how do we go about doing it in today's climate?
That's real interesting because, Kev, you just sent out the email about the new Black Wall Street in Stonecrest, Georgia. And, I think we can do it. I just think that we have to accept the fact it's not going to look like Tulsa in the 20s, in the 1920s. It's the 20s now. Oh my God. It's not going to look like Tulsa in the 1920s. There's so much of it that's not going to look the same. And there's so much, so the reality is, maybe we won't be able to do it that way. But I do think that there's the ability to do something that's encompassing. And here's what I say often is that we have to remember Tulsa was a neighborhood. You know what I mean? They were a neighborhood. They got together and did something that was a necessity. And I think we always have to be very clear on my son back there super excited. We've always got to be very clear on the fact that whenever we were forced into these areas because we were Black and white people didn't want us around, we excelled and we did great things. And when we got to doing great things, they came and they destroyed our stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I think sometimes, we do have to do the PR, the personal responsibility part. But I think it's worth a study to look at all of the majority Black towns that were destroyed that had riots. And I have a list of them. I think that might make a great episode for us to take a deeper dive into that. Every time Black excellence, you look at the Reconstruction in the South, when we started making progress, violence and destruction always came shortly afterwards. So I think it's possible, but I do think that the strategy has to be dramatically different. There's gonna have to be some patience. You know, we can't just turn it around. It might be something that none of us can see in our lifetimes, but we can plant the seeds. But I think something transformative on that level can happen, but it won't be just like it was in Tulsa in the 1920s.
Yeah, and to your point, John, regarding some of the other ones, I think most times, not most times, we always hear about and talk about Tulsa, but it's rare that you hear anyone bring up Bronzeville in Chicago, right? Haiti and Durham, Sweet Auburn in Atlanta, West 9th Street in Little Rock, and places like that. So I think it'd be nice if sometime we would get out of the habit. And when I say we, I don't mean us here as a group. I mean we as a people, get out of that habit of always pointing to Tulsa, because there was so many that were well known in their time, but you rarely hear of them in this day and age. But we talked about this. I think it was in an episode last season. We talked about this actually, we've had 2 different episodes that involved Tulsa and Black Wall Street. And we talked about this very question. And I remember saying, my response to that was, no, I don't think that we could bring back Wall Street. But I guess now I would lean more toward what John just said, right? No, I don't think we can bring back Wall Street as Wall Street was. However, it would look a lot different. In the last question, we talked about evolving and evolution of things. And because things are much different, here we are, over 100 years since Black Wall Street, and things are just so much different. So while we can do some things that have some of the elements of what Black Wall Street had, it would certainly look a lot different in this day and age than what it did back then. So
I agree with you both. And I do think there's some resemblance of a Black Wall Street can happen, but in my opinion, I think it's going to take a lot of buy-in from our entire community, and also a willingness to support each other instead of avoiding it or trying to tear it down from within. If we could get together like these other communities seem to do, like the Hispanic communities, the Asian communities, the Jewish communities, if we could get together and spend our money in our own communities, I really think that it could be done. It won't be, like you said, not a single community. It would be a more of a nationwide thing. But again, we have to be willing, in my opinion, to spend our dollars in our own community versus, we're so willing to go put our money or spend our money in somebody else's community, but we won't do it in our own. So some resemblance of a Black Wall Street could happen, I personally believe.
I think it's happening now. You just I think it's more global. When I was going to school, you found people who were getting degrees in the global economy. People looking at the economy in Africa, how much Africa resources are in this world, around the world. And so when you start looking at those resources that are being used, you start looking at people who are actually doing things that, that are million and billionaires, that are making money, that are Black people. I think it's happening to some degree, but I think it's on a larger scale. But like to what you guys were saying about actually where we actually gonna see a whole 3-4 blocks of, Black owned banks and Black hospitals and, Black drugstores and stuff like that. I don't know if that type is going to come back, but I think if we start thinking globally, we talked on this episode on the show before about traveling, about, about money and how to utilize your money and make it work for you. I think in that aspect, yes, we are experiencing Black Wall Street, but I don't think we're gonna, again, are we gonna see a Tulsa or a Rosewood again? No, probably not. But I think we're making some positive changes though, or making some positive strides in that.
In my recollection, Black Wall Street was born out of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Say necessity is the mother of invention,
Yeah.
ingenuity, motivation, hard work, stick-to-itiveness, and that's how it came about, you know. And it doesn't mean that, you know, we don't have people with those characteristics or traits today. It just means that it's different now. And so the motivation is different. Plus, at that time, look at all the things they didn't have. They didn't have the internet.
Right.
You know, they didn't have social media. You know, they didn't have or weren't interested in Louis Vuitton or Gucci. I mean, quite honestly, to me, it boils down to it wouldn't be a Black Wall Street as it existed then. It would be whatever would interest anyone in any community to live what they consider to be a successful life and to move their communities forward. How we go about doing it, it would start with discipline and just realizing that, you know, you don't have to follow the trends or follow the Joneses. You know, it's okay to live within your means. You know, you can dream big dreams and you can do and have anything that you want. But just as we came into this world, so will we leave it. And that's with nothing. Right? So to me, it's about, you know, the quality of life that you want to live. And I think that Black Wall Street, you know, represented things that were certainly different for Black folks. And it also provided them, you know, an opportunity to build something they could be proud of as a community, you know. But it was out of necessity. And I think that lies, to me, the biggest difference and what would ultimately become the greatest challenge, right? I mean, how many times have you heard anybody say that, you know, I'm going to go live here because I don't want to live around them, talking about their own people, right? So, you know, you have a lot more options now, a lot more opportunities, and I think what you see is people exercising those in order to build a stronger community. I think it just requires, you know, everyone to be a lot more disciplined and focused. And fortunately, there are a lot of distractions in the world today. And people are looking to the left and right, you know, which is why they're having crashes.
All right, our fifth and final question. What do people misunderstand most about you? What an interesting question to end with. I would say for me, probably my passion is generally misunderstood as anger. That happens often, always has. I've gotten better, I think, about trying to rein that in. But yeah, I oftentimes I get, when I'm really passionate about something, which I'm passionate about a lot of things, I get loud, and it comes across, and my tone of voice comes across as the angry Black man, I think, you know, which I hate that term, but that's kind of how a lot of people look at it. But yeah, there's a big difference between me being passionate about something, me being angry about something. And again, people generally mistake my passion for anger.
You
Take
don't
take it from somebody that's seen him angry and has been the reason why he was angry. Oh man, sometimes
okay,
I'm just
anger.
Oh,
What'd you say?
yeah,
Kev gets angry.
yeah. I mean, trust me. And the crazy part is, they say God looks out for babies and fools, and I definitely wasn't a baby, so it was definitely a lot of foolery. So
Yep.
there was never a time he got angry at me where I was like, I wonder what he was so mad about. Like I was aware. I was totally aware. Ah man, I was so quick to jump in and piggyback on Kev talking about his passion being mistaken. I wasn't sure how I wanted to answer this doggone question. Man, there's so many things that people misunderstand about me. I mean, where do you start? So I'll try to find some low hanging fruit. People think, or I think one of the things that people misunderstand about me is, like, I think that people translate my front facing persona as who I am. And my front facing persona is more of a mishmash of what I needed to be, what I had to be, or what I felt I needed to be to protect myself, things like that. But there's a radically different version of me when I don't have to show up to meet an expectation or, stuff like that. So, I think, how can I explain that? Because I just put that out. That's real vague. So for instance, some people think I'm extroverted. I'm absolutely not. Absolutely not extroverted at all. Like I've just been in arenas of life that require me to learn how to talk to people. So like I've figured it out, but man, I would rather I'd rather be at the house. You know what I'm saying? Like I love being alone. Like, man, if my son wasn't a pure extrovert, his mama was an extrovert, he is a pure extrovert. If he wasn't, I would probably spend days and weeks in the house, wouldn't come out because like I'm good. I think some people, no, people think that I have jerk ways. That's true. No, that's a fact. I do. I can be very sarcastic, but then again, that's still a misunderstanding because sarcasm is a defense mechanism. Like it's sometimes I don't want to engage in this useless small talk, and why are you making me answer questions that don't need to be answered? So like a lot of times. But yeah, I think one of the things that is misunderstood about me is, people tend to define me as my front-facing persona, and I'm a lot different. I don't want to say I'm the opposite, but most of my front-facing, personality traits are exaggerated just so that I can, be able to show up in the moment how I'm needed. But my natural tendencies aren't the same as my front-facing tendencies.
That's straight up code switching, which we all do, right? I mean, yeah, I get that.
And Kev just gonna call me a code switcher. Okay, thanks.
Oh no, it's not even a negative thing, right? We all have to do that. It's just unfortunately we've all had to do that.
So I would I'm sure there are a lot of things like that. I would say the thing they misunderstand most is that my kindness is really not weakness. And so just to add some context to that, I think, for anyone that's known me or been around me, I'm not the most outgoing person. I can be quiet at times. I think that's been part of my makeup, demeanor, personality for as long as I can remember. However, being in the military, being in certain jobs, it forces you to to be different than you probably normally are. I remember in recruiting school, people were like blown away that, that I won a sales award. Like, what? And, like, well, yeah, it was time to perform. I can do that. Right. But then I go right back to quiet, relatively unassuming. But I think there have been times as well that, because when people don't know you, if they meet you when you're 32, they don't know the journey you had to take to get to 32, right? And what made you, right? What strengthened you, especially from an internal perspective. And I think that's it. I've heard people say, "Wow, I can't believe you actually grew up and lived through and made it out of North Philadelphia." And like, well, I did. And it was because, you do what you have to do, to survive. Or at least that's what we learned early on. If you're gonna survive those streets, you got to understand them.
Yeah.
Then you have to move in a way that you can navigate, the challenges, the danger, if there is any. And I grew up and gang wars were real big. So doubly important at that time. They didn't care. They didn't care how old you were. You not from around here, then you got dealt with, plain and simple. So, but I think that's probably the biggest thing. Y'all know my kindness, which is always, as John say, my forward-facing demeanor, can be mistaken as being weak, and that is absolutely far from the truth. I'm just blessed, highly favored, and thankful that I don't have to go back to North Philadelphia very often, and let that come out, right? So that would be my response to that question.
No, I guess the millions that I have. People always think I got money somewhere. Y'all think I stole the MWR funds?
That's not a misunderstanding.
You did.
The only one to misunderstand that is you, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know why people think I just got
You're the
money
only one to
somewhere.
misunderstand that.
But no, piggybacking what Rod was saying was there's this quote that says, "Don't judge me by the chapter of my life you walked in on."
Yep.
And we talked earlier tonight about evolving. We all done our stuff back in the day. There's people that still want to hold you accountable for what you did when you was 25.
Yep.
And you got to get to the point where, what, I can't live my life because of what you think about me. And I think this question for me is like, at the end of the day, I think I said it earlier, I'm not going to live my life based on what you think about me. As long as I can sleep at night, as long as I'm take care of my responsibilities, it may not be the way you want me to do it, but guess what? I'm getting it done. And so my thing, as long as I'm not hurting nobody. And I think the other thing too, like I said, because we're learning how to, I want to say, accept people where they are. I know for me, that's a big thing. I've learned that you got to accept people where they are. They're not always going to be on your level. We had an episode where we talked about, we talk about your circle of friends and we see how much you grow or not growing. So for people to misunderstand you, I ain't going to have time I'm not going to give them the time of day to try to explain to you if you misunderstand me. That's something you got to live with. I'm going to keep living my life. So, and I think as long as people learn that, okay, you may not understand me, but give me a break. You may not understand me, but hear my story. You may not understand me, but, let me tell you where I've come from to where I am now. And if people in your circle don't want to do that, then maybe they don't need to be in your circle.
Yeah, B, there's a saying that I like to use that says, when people work hard to grow and develop and change into someone else, you have to allow them to show up as that person. And I've used that often, and I agree with what you just said 100%. Yeah, and we too often we get into that, and I'm not going to take up too much time, and I know Ray, you got to get yours in, but I had a conversation not too long back about a specific commander that really gave me and Lisa Carmen and Ray the business, and for a few years there, and they were asking, something came up about how I feel about her or something like that, and I'm like, I don't feel any particular way. Like, I mean, I'm past that. Like, I don't even know who she is, right? I think about me, right? When that happened, that was 2011, right? That was 13 years ago when I left the Bureau. And I am so far removed at this point from the person that I was then. And I have no idea who she is now. She might be the same person. She might be worse. She might be better. So for you to hold something against me, the person that I was 13, 14, 15 years ago, you're holding something against someone that doesn't even exist anymore, right? And so why would I do that? I hold nothing against her, nothing at all. I don't know who she is. She might be somebody totally different. She might regret what she did, or maybe she doesn't. But either way, I have no idea who she is. So I'm not going to sit up here and be, first of all, I'm not holding grudges against anyone because it's stupid and it really only affects you. But then again, secondly, why am I going to hold grudges against someone who may not even exist anymore? I don't know who that woman is anymore. She might be one of the greatest people on the planet now. So I'm not going to sit up here and hold something against her and say what I would and wouldn't do and what I would and wouldn't say to her if I saw her now.
You what you said was very poignant, but what I'm gonna say is this: I forgave, but I'll never forget. And for that same commander, if she was on fire, I wouldn't piss on her to put it out. That's
And
how
that's a
I
problem. That's a problem that you got to
Well,
contend with.
well, no, because again, I forgave her, but again, I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't go out of my way to do anything for her. That's just how it is. But
That's still a
you
problem
know,
that you probably want to deal with.
well,
So
then I'll deal with it in my own time.
yeah.
But to answer the question, Rod literally stole my answer. I mean, I had kindness for weakness written down. And I know it's I've had family members that I would do things for, do things to help them. And then after a while, instead of just allowing me to do things for them, they started asking for it. So then I started feeling like I was being taken for granted. And then at that point, it's like, I had to flip the switch. It's like, yeah, you know what, hold on. Don't ask me for anything. If I offer, then that's a different story. Then you come up and tell me what you need. But until then, don't ask, because now I feel like you're starting to take me for granted. But that was really it. It was my thing is I think the one thing that was mistaken for people misunderstood about me was that my kindness was a weakness, and it really wasn't.
Got it.
All right. Well, with that, we want to thank each of you for taking the time to join us. As we wrap up this week's episode, we want to leave you with a quote from a woman who really needs no introduction, Oprah Winfrey, who said, "If you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. If you look at what you don't have in life, you'll never have enough." Until next time, peace.